Hello, everyone. Welcome to those attending online and for those that will watch this recording later, where this is the Reynolds Company Learning Series for August 2025, What's New and What's Next in Logix. My name is Brian McKeska. I'm an automation specialist in the Houston-Pasadena area of Texas with the Reynolds Company. With me today is, that you heard talking before, is Wayne Wilk, our automation specialist out of the New Orleans office with the Reynolds Company, and also Chris Dornan, the commercial marketing manager for process controllers and I/O with Rockwell Automation. So on to today's topic. And we'll start with the ControlLogix portfolio. Logix itself was introduced back in 1998, so we're pretty far along right now. This year, Rockwell surpassed 3 million controllers sold under the Logix platform. So that was a pretty big milestone. And Rockwell hasn't stopped development into the Logix platform. Further development is currently underway for the next generation with the L9, but it will still retain a similar look and feel as before. Just some aesthetics updates as well as under the hood updates with the hardware and software too. There's a team internally called the Rockwell Automation Industrial Design and User Experience Team, and they're dedicated for hardware and software refreshes and taking customer feedback and incorporating that into future product updates as well as new products at release. And the hardware design part of that department met to help modernize the look and feel of the ControlLogix and CompactLogix line and help improve the visibility, legibility, and intuitiveness within the Logix platform itself. What you see on this slide applies to the 5580 and the 5380 controllers as well as the 5069 I/O, and this was a phase 1 release of the aesthetic updates. So within this, you have improved LED and legend visibility in the top of the unit, better differentiation between segments, as you have the hourglass shape or the clock tower shape, depending on who you ask at Rockwell. And there's been tooling changes within the manufacturing line to improve the print clarity in the units. The black screen print that you see is for high contrast interface background for print, so it's easier to read. And then overall, they've simplified the graphics for maximum legibility, and they've essentially removed all the injection molding lines that you had before and replaced them with smooth fronts that you'll see on the next screen. So this is what phase 2 will look like. So the injection molded lines that I mentioned, you can see under the original here, and then going with the smooth over here. Phase 2 is mainly going to be the power supplies and terminal blocks for ControlLogix. All of these changes, again, are only aesthetic to make it easier to quickly find and diagnose modules for engineers and technicians. Even though it is only aesthetic, there will be a series change in some components. So you'll see that filter through the supply chain for a while. It'll take for the old units to be flushed out before you start seeing the new components. And then after that point, you should start to see only the new components. And highlights of what's new overall. We do have, and released a little while ago, OPC UA support within the Logix controller. It's the in-chassis OPC without the need for an external gateway, or server-side software, as well as similar components within the embedded compute space with Logix Edge. The Flex HA platform, or Flex HA 5000 platform, is our next generation redundant I/O, which is the successor to the 1715 redundant I/O platform. And this is design and architecture upgrades on a fully redundant system, fully redundant backplane, redundant media modules, redundant COM cards, redundant power supplies, redundant I/O if you need. You can also do simplex I/O, as well as the duplex I/Os is typically where you're going to see the presentations go on that. And it's similar to the 1715, but within phase one release, which we're at now with the FlexEdge 5000, you have universal I/O. Later phases will include higher density I/O in this platform, and it will eventually roll into the Logix SIS solution that we'll talk about a little later. And also recently, if you're not aware, within the CompactLogix 5000 platform, we have Heart I/O modules, or for highly integrated Heart, to fill out the modern I/O options within the 5069 CompactLogix 5000 I/O. And also, rounding out what's new, we have our Logix SIS platform, which we've done a presentation pretty recently on that within the learning series. It's our latest iteration of our SIL 2, SIL 3 solution, which utilizes the L8 guard Logix controllers for concurrent execution across the chassis for bumpless switchover. A larger L85 guard Logix has also been released to meet this additional need for a larger safety system, as well as being able to field larger applications within the Logix SIS solution. Because previously we also had the L75, L85 in a redundant chassis. And this is the Logix SIS, the next iteration of that. Many of the products across Rockwell bulletin numbers are getting a refresh with XT. XT are products designed for both high temperature and conformal coating. So no longer you'll have the K or the XT options. It'll just be XT, where XT is the conformally coated option. And this is across the board, talking drives, automation, you name it. Rockwell's, it was a large, excuse me, it was a large number of catalog numbers that Rockwell's going to offer an XT offering. And last but not least, and we'll talk about this a lot later, we have the upcoming L9 or 5590 controller with the 1756 ControlLogix line. And this will be very, very prevalent automation fair if you go. So I encourage you, if you do go, check out the automation section with the new L9 and any demos that they may have being offered. Within our distributed I/O platform, just released is our Point Max I/O. And this is to complement what you are seeing in the refresh of our existing I/O platform. So with the 1794 Flex, you migrate, or the typical extension will be the Flex 5000. And then with the 1715, we talked about going the FlexEdge 5000. And with the Armor Block, going to Armor Block 5000. And so with 1734.io, Point Max is the next iteration of that. It's about 30% smaller than the 1734.io when comparing with a known bill of materials. So I think that example is given with 32 DI, 16 DO, 4 AI, 4 AO, 8 safety DI, and 8 safety DO. You get a 30% reduction in space. Obviously, if you change those numbers around, you may bracket into a different slot, where it may be even more or less, or fewer or more. The Ethernet ports on it are gigabit with both DLR and PRP capabilities, similar to the Flex 5000 IO. On first release, it has about 90% coverage of the 1734 product line, including safety IO in that 90% coverage. And you have 32 modules per network adapter with expansion power needs only after 16 modules. So really, you only need one expansion power module per a maxed out rack. Whereas before, you may have needed a lot more. Now, granted, if you are mixing AC and DC in different configurations, you may need more than that to split out. But in terms of maximizing, it's also adds to that reduction in space. And new to this platform, you can, per spec, you can also vertically mount, even though you will be derated. Versus with the Flex 5000 platform, you can vertically mount without derating. the point max, you can still vertically mount. You'll just undergo a bit of a temperature derating on that. You'll also have removal and insertion under power, and it will require version 36 or later with Studio 5000 Logix Designer. And moving on to our new edge computing products, our new and existing edge computing products. I mentioned earlier OPC UA being available on version 36. In addition to the operating factory talk software on a typical workstation or server computer, we have multiple compute devices available. The scalable compute solutions enable you to run FactoryTalk Links Gateway as an embedded OPC UA server, and you can do this in a panel with VersaView 6300 and a ControlLogix chassis via the 1756 compute module, directly with the controller with the CompactLogix 5480, or out of the front port of the L8 controller in a simplex configuration. The front port on the L8 is disabled when placed in a redundant chassis configuration, so you wouldn't be able to do that in a redundant architecture. The adoption of OPC UA seems to be growing between manufacturers as the preferred open standard for communication. And within Rockwell, you have many methods to connect into this communication path. And that is only going to grow as time goes on. We also have a new embedded edge compute module. This is running Linux Yocto 64-bit OS. So previously you may have seen this with either Red Hat or Windows 10 IoT. So this is a new in-chassis module running a ARM processor with about, I think it's a little over 50 gigs of user storage native on the device. It comes with optics runtime, or FactoryTalk optics runtime, extra small. You have the option to go anywhere from that extra small that it comes with, or upgrading to small, medium, or large. It also comes with FactoryTalk remote access runtime, Pro, actually the Pro variant. It comes with the Pro variant, and it includes a Docker engine. If you already have something like Node-RED or something on the back end and a Docker container, you can just move over to this. It's good for greenfield and brownfield applications. The initial focus is for OEMs pretty much all across the board, small to large machines, simple to complex applications, as well as end users from anywhere from a simple to complex machine applications. It's a very versatile unit, and there's a decent amount of support and application availability for this unit. Onto Logix controllers and general redundancy. It's been mentioned before, but if you're not aware, the L8 controllers for CompactLogix, or for ControlLogix and the 5380 controllers and the CompactLogix 5000 do meet IEC 62443-4-2. This IEC 62443 itself is used as a defense in depth as a core security principle itself, and the intention is to utilize this within a multi-layered approach to security. There are many subsections within IEC 62443, but section 4-2 covers the technical security requirements for industrial automation control system components. So basically your vendors, of which the 5580 and the 5380 were the first controllers to meet in the industry. And on the slide, you have two components of your CIA triad, if you're familiar with cybersecurity theory, more or less, with confidentiality and integrity. If you needed availability on the ControlLogix side, you could look into going with that redundant controller chassis to meet that the A part of the CIA triad. And there's also been some safety enhancements for GuardLogix controllers as of version 36. As we mentioned before, there's been updates to enable OPC UA communications from the chassis through the front port of the L8 and including the GuardLogix controllers, as well as a host of other updates with the Logix SIS system coming on board that requires a GuardLogix controller. And not yet released, and you'll see second from the bottom on the left, it's on the horizon is an easier way to assist in migrating and creating BMS applications with the burner application suite. This will have pre-built functions across Logix and I believe FactoryTalk View and FactoryTalk Optics. Chris, I don't know if you can confirm or deny that one. I'm pretty sure Optics was included in that, was it not? And onto the new redundancy modules. So I've talked about redundancy quite a bit. You have the RM3 modules, so this is good. As a drop-in replacement for the RM2, you do need to upgrade in kind, so you have to upgrade in pairs if you're migrating from the RM or the RM2 to the RM3. This is also 62443-4-2 capable, and it has interchangeable SFP modules. So you can choose if your chassis is right next to each other, you can get maybe a little longer in this with your fiber, either single mode or multi-mode fiber between the two with those selectable SFP modules or direct attached copper, I believe, as well with that. There's support for precision time protocol stamping and synchronization. And on top of that, that's important as there were modifications done to the logging mechanism to be a little more user-friendly. And there's a SD card in this for error collection. So if it faults out, you get writes to from the memory space into the SD card. It's a micro SD card for troubleshooting and diagnostics later to figure out what happened. This is included in the Plant PX 5.4 specification that is newly released. And any new applications utilizing L8 controllers or GuardLogix controllers in a redundant application would probably want to use this module for future proofing, as it will also be absolutely required for the L9 or the 5590 redundant controller application. So the RM2 compatibility will stop with the L8. And beyond that, you will need to consider the RM3, which should be available for release now. I've seen it in SAP. I think you can order it now. It has been delayed for a little bit. But, okay. Yeah, so it's available for order, placing orders now. Yeah, so if you have a turnaround coming and it's going to be 2 to 3 years or more until the next one, you may want to consider moving to the RM3 while you have the chance. And on to Logix SIS. So this is our new SIL 2, SIL 3 platform. And it consists of the 1756 GuardLogix 5580 Logix controllers. Either the RM2 or the RM3. We would prefer the RM3 for future proofing purposes. So that's the preference. And the 1756 EN4TR, as that communication module allows for concurrent communications to the 5094 Flex 5000 IO platform. Functionality under the hood is unlocked with just firmware updates. It's starting with version 37.011. Safety configurations are now handled by the controller itself. Custom AOIs are no longer needed. It's just a checkbox to enable safety within the redundant configuration. And you have concurrent safety execution between the primary and the secondary controller. So the second controller in this case becomes what was classically the safety partner when you had a simplex chassis. Upon the next release coming up in version 38, the biggest goal that Rockwell's trying to hit is the ability to allow for the creation of a safety signature while you're online in run mode with the redundant controllers without needing to take the units offline, or basically into program mode to get the safety signature created. So we should see that with the version 38 release of Studio 5000 Logix Designer. Beyond that, future versions should see support for the redundant safety IO with the 5015 platform, safety or function block editor within the safety memory or safety tasks, SIS specific safety instructions, structured text editor for the safety as well, and then editing IO online is going to be a big one in the future, as well as editing configurations online. So I mentioned before, there's a large push around creating conformally coded and high temperature products within a whole slew of Rockwell catalog numbers. Over the years, there's been a very prevalent failure rate that we've seen due to various environmental factors. So, obviously, if you're in a facility with, SF4 gases or fluorine or ammonia or chlorine, you're in an environment that's very conducive to that. But along in our area, we also have humidity to worry about, and a lot of other areas of the country as well. So corrosion happens not only in the presence of reactive compounds, but like I mentioned, often along our Gulf Coast market, we're dealing with high humidity and even sometimes condensing humidity, especially if you lose instrument air or a panel AC fails or something like that and you're unaware. Rockwell themselves has in-house full capability chemistry and materials lab, including custom designed mixed flow and gas chambers for accelerated corrosion testing. So they're actively testing the products to figure out where the most likely failure rates are during development and trying to address those before the products are coming out with the XT rating. Rockwell themselves have also partnered with Purifil to offer little coupons, which you see here. For analysis, and these are orderable through the Reynolds Company or McNaught McKay. Each coupon consists of a strip of copper you see up top and a strip of silver along the bottom, along with temperature and relative humidity logger. You would place these coupons around your facility inside and outside of enclosures, and you would wait about 30 days. I think 30 days is what they're aiming for. And then you would remove them, send them back to Purifil for analysis in their ISO lab. And then Purifil would then provide you a report detailing the corrosion rate observed, trend plots for temperature and humidity and how those affected the corrosion rates or the expected corrosion rates, and classification per ANSI and ISA 71.04, which is your airborne contaminants and gases specification or regulation, or not regulation, specification. And so there are different levels of conformal coding that can go. Rockwell is gearing up pretty much across the board is going to be GX, so on the severe side. But severe itself only means above 2000 angstroms over 30 days for both copper and silver. And so, by looking at this chart, you can see tire silver is almost 10,000, while data center is more worried about on the copper side, and are seeing more extremes on the copper side. But pretty much all of our industries within our Houston area have very common for corrosive environments. So if you're seeing some failures due to either electrochemical migration or electrochemical corrosion, a lot of the newer products are coming with XT, and it's if you're writing the spec for those or ordering new, or see a catalog number that has an XT at the end and the one you currently have does not, and you're seeing a corrosion issue on that, go ahead and order the XT. It'll be a drop-in replacement for that. Over the years, I think the really old method for or really old catalog numbers had -CC for conformally coded. And then that moved into XT for extended temperature or K for conformally coded. And in what you're about to see now coming up is XT across everything. They're dropping the K for conformally coded. And that'll go both with conformally coded and have extended temperatures as well. Moving on into the exciting bits of the new L9 controller, the 5590 ControlLogix controller. Everything with the new L9 is about twice as fast as the L8, except for the price. Price should only be about 5% increase over the L8. There's also going to be a lower sized controller and a higher sized controller. So 2 megabyte on the bottom end and 80 megabyte on the top end. You can turn the front two ports, the Ethernet ports, into high performance redundancy crossload, which will increase your redundancy performance by about 2 or double what you currently receive with the RM2. To enable this feature, there will be a checkbox within the controller properties tab, and that's all you got to do, as well as hooking up the cables. The L9 will require the RM3, as we mentioned before, for redundancy applications. And you will have to upgrade in kind. So if you have 2 RM2 modules, you're going to have to need 2 RM3 modules. You can't mix. And every single L9 will have safety task memory embedded in it. So this is a big change, including the process variants. So GuardLogix itself will be going away as a brand name, as every controller will have safety memory, and you'll be able to enable or disable it as you need. So if you're not using safety, you just don't check the box for enabling the safety memory. There will still be an L9 safety partner for simplex single chassis solutions needed for SIL 3. And Studio 5000 version 38 will be the first version to support the L9 controllers later this year, or when it releases later this year. Phase Manager will still be supported on all catalog versions of the 5590, but Sequence Manager will only be available for the process controller variants, or the P controller variants that you see now for use with Plant PAX. Looking deeper into the actual hardware itself, some things you'll notice: the USB Type B, so the printer port cable, is being changed to a modern USB-C cable. So no longer trying to find that chunky printer cable laying around somewhere. But there's also no power supplied through this port; it's only data. So no charging through your phone, if you're wondering that. For if you're sitting there trying to program the thing and low on battery. There will be included a 8 gig micro SD card. So it's a change from the SD card we see today. It's going to micro SD, and that will be included in each controller. Upon a major fault, an image of the memory locations will be written to the card for troubleshooting by either customer SI, Rockwell field service engineer, what have you. Very similar to what I mentioned before with the RM3. Another big thing you'll notice: the mode switch is now a toggle instead of being keyed. This is a big thing in saving real estate on the PCB, especially to include the second Ethernet port. A common misconception of the previous controllers, other than the shape of the operator handle looking like a key, the switch was simply a 3-position rotary switch that could have been turned with a small screwdriver. So the new switch is very similar to the one used on the CompactLogix controllers with the toggle. And security-wise, if you're concerned about that, just make sure your cabinets, enclosures and cabinets are locked accordingly. All of the modules will be laser engraved. One, to help combat counterfeiting, as paper labels are easier to replicate, and also prevent wear off a little better than sometimes you'll get with the paper. The mod light has changed instead of a OK light, and there's been a few other changes to conform to ODVA standards. So it's really just updating it to be more consistent across industry standards. The reset button under the door must be depressed for 10 seconds during power up. Otherwise, it's not functional in a running system. So if you need a reset, it's only during power up. Somebody can't just come up and press that button with a paperclip and reset your whole system. It's disabled after startup. And then in around 2027, something called DPP, or Digital Product Passport, will be included when you scan the QR code, and it's a European EU requirement, or future requirement, to retrieve energy consumption, how it's recycled, materials it's made out of, what the carbon footprint is, and that's going to be required in 2027 for all products shipped into Europe or the EU. With that QR code, you can also jumpstart into tech support by scanning it from an internet-enabled phone. The catalog numbers for this are also going to be changing from what you may be used to. They may make a little more sense. So instead of the L81 through 85, the number after the 9 will denote the memory size in 2-digit notation, from 02 for 2 megabyte up to 80 for 80 megabyte. The T stands for Twisted Pair Ethernet. That will be the only option initially. Read into that what you will with regard to potential for SFPs at a later date. That is, from what I understand, a packaging issue and heat load issue, as those tend to get pretty hot sometimes. And every controller itself will come with safety. So S for safety on all controllers. This can also be a PS for the process variant. That includes the PlantPAX library of process objects embedded within the firmware of the controller. And then lastly, you'll either have a blank or an XT for the harsh or extended temperature conformally coded versions. And yeah, I mentioned before, this is basically the ControlLogix name will be removed from the portfolio going forward, as all controllers will be safety or will have included safety memory. So within almost every category, it's about a 2x improvement over the L8, with the tag-based alarms still being quantized. So it's why there's a gap in the 10,000 up to 20,000. They're still quantizing that number right there. Inside, the L9 is a ARM Cortex A53 processor running at 1 gigahertz. In comparison, the L8 currently runs about 600 megahertz. And current testing puts us anywhere from a 2x to a 3x performance jump over the L8 in terms of compute performance alone. There's 4 cores, just like the L8, and each is assigned a different function. One is for Logix, one is for diagnostics, one is for communication, and one is for packet processing, very similar to the L8. There are also now 4 cryptographic hardware accelerators for SIP security purposes. Current testing puts us about a 2x, anywhere from a 2x to a 5x improvement over the L8 SIP security performance, as well as enhancing additional security features with that. It is 62443-4-2 certified, like we talked about before, or will be when it releases. And it will also have secure boot, just like I believe the L8 also has that, to prevent unsigned firmware from being loaded and executed on the controller. So over the years, I mentioned 98 was the initial release. So I guess it was introduced in 97, but about 98 is when the initial release of the first ControlLogix was. And this is more of a hand-drawn. Don't necessarily like try to extrapolate the exact performance gains here, but roughly the shaded gray, red, green areas behind the arrows represent general controller scan time performance measurements. So within the first three iterations between the L1, L55, and L6, there were only incremental scan time performance improvements. The introduction of the L8 or the 5580 was about a 20x performance improvement over the L7 itself. And then to add to that, the 5590 or the L9 coming out is about a 2x performance over the L8. So 2x roughly number of motion axes, number of Ethernet ports, you name it, it's across the board like we saw on the previous slide. And so that makes it about a 40x improvement if you're coming from the L7 in terms of performance. And this will be available on or around October 31st for ordering of this year. Subject to be moved up, hopefully not to be moved back. And that brings us to what happens with the L7. So the colors are flipped on this, I think. The green should be flipped, I believe. Typically the dark green is for active, the lighter green is for active mature. If you look on the Rockwell Automation lifecycle status web pages. But the expected move for active mature for the L7 was to be in Q4 of this year, with V38 being the final software version release of Studio 5000 that the L7 would be supported on. As of yesterday, as a shocker to some of us, the L72, L73, and L74 were all listed as active mature, and presumably with the L71 and L75 to follow very shortly after. The lifecycle of the L7 Armor will not be moving at this time. The L7 will still be available for purchase. Just denotes that there is something newer on the market that meets or exceeds the capabilities of the L7 itself. Not shown on the slide is the CompactLogix controllers, which will see the L2 and L3 and corresponding I/O move into active mature status also in Q4 of this year. And they too will see version 38 as their final Studio 5000 version compatible release. The natural migration for the CompactLogix, the old 1769 or older now, the 1769 CompactLogix platforms is the 5069 CompactLogix 5000 and corresponding I/O platform, the CompactLogix 5000 I/O. But there are also, as we saw, other I/O platforms that you can pair with that CompactLogix 5000 controller, such as Point Max and Flex 5000 I/O. The 5370 CompactLogix L1, so that 1769 L1 controller with the embedded I/O, will maintain its active lifecycle status, though it will still have the same limit for compatibility ending at version 38 of Studio 5000 Logix Designer. The 5370 CompactLogix L3 safety and armor controllers will go end of life with last time buy opportunities in Q4. So that's your compact guard Logix in the 1769 platform and your armor in the 1769 platform. Migration assistance can be found through Integrated Architecture Builder. It's a free tool if you've not used it. Same with ProposalWorks. It's a part of the product selection toolbox with Rockwell. It's free software to download and install. Or with the newly upcoming online variant of that with Advisor, which is advisor.rockwellautomation.com. There are also selection guides and controller and I/O mapping guides through the Rockwell Literature Library. And moving on to L9 or we've done the L9, but talking more about Studio 5000 Logix Designer. So at version 36, there was a big introduction for OPC UA at the controller level with the front board of the L8. Version 37 introduced Logix SIS and allowed for a checkbox for OPC UA instead of needing to utilize the OPC add-on instruction or AOI. Devices that are exclusively supported by RSLinx Classic will only be available up to version 37, as RSLinx Classic will be removed in version 38. This includes the 1035 and 1336 product families, as well as a smattering of components of Ethernet and ControlNet components within the 1788 line. So if you don't recognize any of those bulletin numbers, you're probably good. But RSLinx Classic can still be co-located on the same OS with version 38 running if you have previous versions of Logix Designer installed. So if you're got that laptop that's been going for years and years and years, and you've installed the oldest version first and gone up and eventually will install version 38, you'll still be good if you have all those versions installed. And upon version 38 release, hopefully coming around the September timeframe right before Automation Fair, you will see the first support for the L9 and the last version support for the L7. There will be better alignment with AML data structures for increased operability between Logix and ePlan. ePlan, if you've not heard of it, is a Rockwell Automation technology partner that offers software and services solutions in electrical automation and mechatronic engineering. They enable OEM panel builders and suppliers to efficiently design automation and power systems. And to Rockwell purpose for this is to further enhance the collaboration. The integration of automation markup language, or AML, now allows electrical schematics and device data from ePlan to be more seamlessly exchanged with Logix Designer. The first release was way back in version 32, but the previous workflow involved additional software with Studio 5000 Architect and Integrated Architecture Builder. Now bidirectional device data can be done directly with version 38. Simplifying this workflow between ePlan and Logix Designer saves user time from doing repetitive work and tedious tasks. There should be, if not now, later, a YouTube video and application technique document at or just after the version 38 release to go over the new synchronization dialog windows. And coming in October, hopefully everybody is aware. If you haven't heard, welcome to the hole you crawled out of. Windows 10 security updates will be stopped by Microsoft. And so version 38 will release Windows 10 support. I expect at some time in the future, future releases will slowly drop support for Windows 10 as security updates are going to be discontinued in October. As Windows 11 picks up. The earliest version of Studio 5000 Logix Designer that you can install on Windows 11 that is tested to be full working compatible with current patches is version 33, I believe. And the same goes in the server environment. If you're doing more like PlantPX style architectures, 37 will be the last tested and confirmed support for Windows Server 2019, as we now have Windows Server 2022 being more the de facto standard with PlantPX 3.4. Or 5.4, sorry, 5.4. I said 3.4. And also testing for Windows Server 2025 coming up and future releases, and starting with version 38. So with safety, a part of every controller now, with talking about the L9, including the P controller or process controller. Because of this, you can leverage process and safety in the same development software with Studio 5000. It achieves a reduction in system integration complexities and faster faster scan times when combining these two disciplines in the same controller application. It becomes easier to design, test, and troubleshoot overall to support both process and control systems and safety systems, or process control systems, safety systems. For the first time, customers can standardize their SIS and BPCS, or basic process control system, with a single controller SKU and software platform with V38 and beyond, while maintaining physical separation if desired, as the same controller can perform both SIS and BPCS functions independently, but you maintain the same tools and user experience within the Plant PX DCS. And getting started with this, as you see in the bottom right-hand corner, it's as easy as checking a box on the redundancy side. Every controller, starting with the L9, will be SIL 2 capable by default with the option of SIL 3. Safety can be opted out, again, just by checking a box right here, just like with the redundancy. And it's under the controller properties menu option. The software itself for Studio 5000 Logix Designer has been redesigned to more easily manage the safety code. And there's been a revamp in the controller capacity tab that you'll see on the right, the old version being the single capacity, the new version having split your normal program and your safety memory block capacity. And so overall, there's fewer physical components to purchase, reducing the amount that you need in your spares or storage area, and then less to install and manage itself. And so, in summary, for the L9, there's safety memory within every L9 controller. The BPCS and SAS can coexist in the same application if that's acceptable to you. And options for the front port is either dual IP, DLR, or cross-loading with a redundant chassis. Another thing to add in this is the next iteration, or version 4 of Logix Echo, will support the L9 controller emulation and will release shortly after the introduction of version 38 of Studio 5000 Logix Designer. You will be able to emulate both COM ports, as well as SIL 2 and SIL 3 capabilities. And then also within the Logix Echo software development kit, or SDK, Python will now be a supported programming language for you to script in. And so that is also a pretty good step change for opening it up for development of not just OT focused personnel, but more classic computer science persons to come in and understand and take off and get running pretty quick, or hit the ground running. It's the idiom I was trying to find. For interested customers, there's also going to be starter kits available that bundle some of the like components together in a cost-effective bundle of hardware that includes the 1756 chassis, power supply. I think we're starting with an L90, one of the lower end of the L9s, to be subject to be able to have controller choice later. Basic IO offering, and option for either high availability or redundancy with a 1756 RM3 module. And another, if you're not aware, Rockwell has something called the FactoryTalk Design Studio. It's our cloud-native, web-based design tool that can connect to controllers for upload-download, as well as having much the ability of the desktop environment, and adds additional modern development features such as the integration of generative AI for code generation, explanation, documentation, troubleshooting, as well as repository features for applications or project change control when you have multiple users working on the same project. The cool thing with this, you can also have multiple persons working on the same project at the same time, I believe. And so version release 2.03 of FactoryTalk Design Studio is the next iteration that will be released alongside the L9, along with version 38 of Studio 5000 Logix Designer. And updates in this platform are planned quarterly. And so as a software as a service based product, Rockwell is able to rapidly iterate on it. And quarterly is the plan, but sometimes they'll go even faster. As it's not a product that you install and manage yourself, it runs in the cloud. It's web-based, so you're just using a browser to connect to it. And so it's expected that the feature set will grow quite quickly as the backend is being managed by Rockwell instead of needing to be managed on your desktop environment. You can get full access to the web-based FactoryTalk Design Studio and the desktop installation for Studio 5000 Logix, Studio 5000 Logix Designer Professional, just by purchasing a subscription for FactoryTalk Design Studio Core. And that actually ends up being about $600 less per year than buying the Studio 5000 Logix Designer Professional subscription. So if you're already considering a subscription for Studio 5000 Logix Designer Professional, you can save money by about $600 and get yourself access to FactoryTalk Design Studio as well in the process. And on to Logix Edge for the software-defined automation. And so a key component of software-defined architecture, software-defined automation is to be flexible and scalable and have a level of hardware abstraction where management is performed via software interfaces. So this will be named Logix Edge, not SoftLogix 5000. Easier integration this provides easier integration into cloud services for high performance analytics, diagnostics, machine learning, while maintaining a level of dynamic resource allocation where needed resources can be allocated, scaled, and reconfigured based on real-time workloads. This is similar to the idea behind FactoryTalk Design Studio, as software-defined architecture will allow Rockwell to rapidly iterate the product based on customer needs and demands. The current iteration, I believe, is geared more towards life sciences for the initial, but it eventually will be open to all. It's just, again, with those, the feedback loop, they've got to start somewhere, and that's where it's starting to fit right now, because this requires more to be internet connected, right? I believe. And so as the evolution goes, Logix controllers will exist as they are today. You can clearly see that Rockwell is investing R&D into the next iteration of hardware Logix controllers with the 5590. But you also have new form factors and industrial PCs. So Logix controllers today, the expected availability is about 10 to 15 years. Logix Edge controllers will have about a 5 to 7 year availability, so a little bit shorter. It is not expected that this is going to replace the Logix portfolio. Rockwell is continuing to develop on both platforms concurrently. And it's an expansion of the portfolio just to include IPC-based versions for higher performance and a more PC-like experience, while allowing users to bring their own custom workloads or choose off-the-shelf workloads to work while connected to Logix. And yeah, let me know if I missed anything on that one, Chris. Those.
Nope, sound good there, Brian. Thank you.
Okay. And onto just general Logix Designer updates. So for the existing PIDE function block, it was, for those not aware, it was no longer included in version 33 and above of Studio 5000 Lite, Full, or Professional editions. So if you needed it beyond, version 33 and up in those other editions, you had to purchase it separately a la carte. If you are migrating to the L9 family, when it releases with an existing project that utilizes that PIDE function block, the program will show an error upon project fabrication when you do the migration that you will need to manually resolve. When this happens, there will be a guide available as a walkthrough, along with a knowledge-based document providing a summary and a link to that migration guide when it releases. So the new instruction will be called the PPID instruction. And then some other aesthetic features, the icon of the 5590 will look different than what you've seen with the L8. So it's more easily recognizable when you're opening a program what it is. And as well as change in the color at version 38 with a more muted and reduced saturation of colors. If you're colorblind, I apologize because this is probably harder for you to see with reduced saturation if you're red, green, or yellow, blue. But for those that aren't, it actually should reduce eye strain for you in the future. And for those that are able to have a internet connected engineering workstation, there is, so by default, new installations of Studio 5000 Logix Designer will have local access for documentation and help. But you will be able to go in and choose to connect to the online access, which would get you the latest and greatest documentation that may not have been available or was released after you installed your program with those local documents. Another change for Logix Designer is the instruction toolbox. It can now be docked or floating for more optimal accessibility. Programming instructions are logically grouped. You'll have a little search bar to be able to find things quickly. But if you still want and you don't want to change this, the single element toolbar will still be available. This is to improve the onboarding experience for new Studio 5000 Logix Designer programmers, as it's more visually appealing than the previous single element toolbar, and enables a more consistent user workflow across design software that we'll see here. So between Studio 5000 View Designer, FactoryTalk View, SEME, FactoryTalk Design Studio, and Studio 5000 Logix Designer, you have a similar look and feel to the toolbox to add. And then, as I mentioned, I think I had a one-sentence slide mention on this earlier, but you no longer in version 37 and 38 need to use the add-on instruction to enable the OPC UA on your controllers. You can just check a box under controller properties to do that. And then with the Studio 5000 Logix Designer SDK, version 2 has been released. Version 1 was just with C++. Version 2 extended that to also include C# as a language. And so you can use this to automate user interface functions and basically reduce labor by automating your design, test, and deployment of a project. And last but not least, so PLC 5's been discontinued for some time, but on December 31st of this year, Ars Logix 5 software will no longer be available for purchase. So there is a last time buy at the moment. And for those that need a version, reach out to your distributor to inquire about this. But this will also mean that any of the legacy toolkits will also not include Ars Logix 5 in the future. It's coming 2026. So if you absolutely need the program or are working on PLC 5 programs, make sure you have your software in place. And historically, if you have purchased it, it is perpetual software. So once you have that serial number and product key, you're good for for life, but know that Windows 10 is dropping off in October, and so with that, you won't be able to install Logix 5 on Windows 11, or you can try, but it's not guaranteed to work. I don't think it will work. And so yeah, just be aware December 31st is your cutoff date for that. With that, thanks for joining, and yeah, that's all I got.
Thanks, Brian. I saw that there were some questions. I was just realizing there were some questions there, so we can try to answer some of those or reply back to them here. I think mainly around the L7 series and the active mature. I think, like Brian had mentioned, the L71 and the L75 were still showing as active, whereas the L72, 3, and 4 were listed as active mature currently. But in general, the L7 family will move completely to active mature at some point in the near future. Again, that just means that it's still active, but there are newer technologies out there. Let's see. Yes, the slideshow is recorded. We make this available on our Reynolds YouTube channel, as well as we have a landing page for all the content on our website too. So we can so it will be available afterwards. Let's see. Also a question around information on the AML plan with ePlan. Personally, not that familiar with that.
That I would have, Ryan, I'll get back to you on that one. I'll need to write that down, but yeah, I'll get back to you on that one, Ryan. I imagine it's the literature library, but I need to go dig for that one. And then Alfredo's question, you would not. You would need to go with for redundant IO. Yeah, that'll be the plan, is to eventually have the 5015 IO with the L9 controllers and the RM3 as the upgrade for the SIL2 redundancy on the controller with redundant IO and the 1715 platform. So that is why there's been a delay. That is actually the sole reason why there's been a delay in moving the L7 to an active mature state, because that is the one application that the L9 with the 5015 will cover, but it has not been released and vetted to the fullest extent for customer.
Yep, great. That's all the questions I see, I think. See, Dean also made some comments about the burner management library, which is also incredibly useful new reference that's been put out there. So there's the burner management library available for the Logix controllers, totally free, available at the PCDC site. All right, and with that, I know we covered a lot today. Appreciate everybody. I know we went a little over time, but a lot of good content. Thanks for joining as always, and appreciate Brian taking the heavy load today, and Chris for being our backup support as well. And we will look forward to seeing everybody next month in September.